What's up everyone, this is Pixelbeard again with another tutorial. Today we're going to be exploring OBS, very basic stuff, going over all the settings, what they could mean, what I'm using, and so forth. So, you already know me, but if you want to know more, I stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Link in the description. Let's get started. Now, if you've clicked on this video, I'm guessing you're having either a hard time with OBS or you're installing it for the first time, so welcome. First step, obviously, you choose the browser and the search engine of your choice, and you're gonna type OBS download. You wanna be looking for the obsproject.com. Once you make it to the website, if you click on your operating system of choice, the download will start automatically. Go ahead and install that. If you don't know how to install software or if you're having a hard time, don't worry about it. Just stop this video right now, go get a friend to help you, someone who's nerdy as me. He can help you go through all of this, get you started with the basic setup, and then you'll be good to go. For everyone else, let's continue. Now that OBS is downloaded and installed, you will want to run it as administrator. This, still to this day, solves a lot of issues, so you may as well want to do that immediately. How do you run as administrator? I will give you an example. You will right click on your shortcut for OBS. We'll go into properties. You will go into compatibilities and you will click run this program as administrator. Now, once you hit apply and OK, now that you've done this properly, the icon is going to be looking like this fella with a Windows Defender type shield. That means that if you click on that, it's going to ask you for permission every single time to run it as administrator. Now that this is done, boot up OBS and it should look like this, the default OBS page. Now, as of this recording, the latest version of OBS is version 26.0.2. We've just got a brand new update, which is 26, brought us a couple new features. It's amazing. Now, on top of running a potentially different version of OBS than me, if you're behind, please update right away. Thank you. If you're in the future, well, hello future people. Are we out of COVID yet? Everything should be looking pretty similar. There's one thing to note is that in my tools, I have a bunch of plugins already installed. If you have any question about any of them, just ask them in the comment. I'm probably going to do a tutorial on some of them, the ones that are really helpful in the future. So, hey, click on subscribe, click the notification bell, so you're updated with my latest video. As of version 26, a lot of the default settings are pretty good, but there's a couple things I suggest you change. But let's go ahead and click on the setting button to bring up the setting menu. Setting menu general, the only thing that is very important is the dark mode setting. If you go and venture anywhere else, this is what will happen to you. We don't want that. So let's keep it a default. Jokes aside, everything else is good. So let's move to the streaming pane. The streaming pane, pretty self-explanatory. You select your service, whether it's Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or any other multitude of streaming service. If it's listed there, you can directly connect to the service using your username and your password. This will handle all the handshaking and you will be streaming to that account. That's the only thing you need to do. If you are streaming in a different environment, let's say Microsoft Stream, or I don't know, you want to use it the old-fashioned way, you can click on use stream key and then you will be copy-pasting the stream key and all other information in there. Since I'm using Twitch, I just clicked on connect account, voila. Now let's move on to the output tab. The output mode by default will be set at simple. Simple is too simple. Most information on the internet, once you start running into problems, are going to be talking about the advanced mode. So let's promote you right away to an advanced user and click the advanced mode. Don't panic, it didn't break anything. It's basically just unlocking some options here. First, in the streaming tab, we got audio track. Audio track in advanced mode. What that means is if you select a compatible recording format, like MP4, let's say, when you record, you will have the option to have 6 different audio tracks that you have individual control in your editing software. So if you do a lot of editing, may as well getting used to multi-track audio because that's going to be very helpful. One example is if you have music playing in your stream the entire stream and then you want to go and edit it and post it on YouTube like we're doing today, well, maybe you want to mute that music. If you don't do that, you will only have one video with music baked in. That's not good. Now we can only select one in the streaming tab. This is because the streaming service that you use will only be listening to one audio track for the stream. By default, it's audio 1, so let's leave it at audio 1. Second is the encoder. I'm using an NVIDIA card. There's difference in different graphic card and the encoder that is built in. I will try my best to summarize it. If you have an NVIDIA card, you have the choice between X264 and NVENC New. NVENC not new being the old one. We're expecting it to be removed anytime soon. If you stream encoding using X264, it's going to be using your CPU to encode every frame. That will obviously impact your CPU performance, but it will leave your GPU alone. I'm on an NVIDIA card, so if I select NVENC, it's going to use the GPU to encode. So let's say you have a really balling GPU and your CPU is struggling a little bit, depending on the application that you're doing, then you probably want to use NVENC. If your GPU is being, starved to death and your CPU seems to have more legroom, then you want to leave it at 264. Note to all the NVIDIA Turing architecture owner. Are you one of them? If you have a 1660 Super, 1660 Ti, any of the 2000 RTX series or any of the 3000 RTX series, your video card is using Turing, and in Turing comes a NVENC encoder that is separated from everything else. So if you have one of those cards, just use NVENC New. It's not going to hit your graphic card at all, and it's going to help you save performance in your video game. Enforce streaming services encoder setting. Make sure that you're not pushing things out of the specification of your website, like Twitch. So leave that turned on. It's just making sure you don't do anything dumb. Rescale outputs. You see it's unchecked and right now it's grayed out. I'm currently recording my computer screen, which is 2560 by 1440. So my canvas, which is the area I'm working with, is set at that resolution, and I'm recording at that resolution. So let's say you're doing a lot of video editing and you're streaming video editing. You want to keep your screen at 2560 by 1440 so that everything is, nice and crisp. But you're streaming on Twitch and your internet connection demands that you lower that to 1080p. You would go into Rescale Output and you would select the output you want to stream at. The higher resolution you stream, the more bandwidth it demands. The bandwidth, you set it manually here in the bitrate. For all the other settings, all of this section, I suggest you go on your streaming service and you go check the recommended setting. If we take Twitch for example, I'm encoding in NVIDIA NVENC 1080p 30. They recommend 4500 CBR, frame rate from 25 to 30, keyframe interval 2, quality, and B-frame 2. Let's go ahead and set that up. CBR is good, 4500 is good, quality, B-frame 2, everything else you leave as is. Copy that. All right. Next, recording. You can record standard, which is the default, or FFmpeg if you have specific need. Recording path is where your file will be saved. Put that into a slower hard drive, somewhere you have extra space that it's not going to fill up easily, because those recording takes a lot of space. You will choose your recording format. I use MP4. It has some limitation, like you've seen the warning that if your recording crashes midway, you're not going to be able to recover the rest of your footage. It has never happened to me. It is still a fairly convenient format to record in, and it does support multiple audio tracks. So unless you have a specific reason not to use this, I suggest you follow my advice and use MP4 and select every single audio track to be recorded. Encoder, you're going to be using the same as the stream encoder. The reason is you won't need then to spend extra resources encoding the feed, because it's going to be the same feed you send to your stream. If you wanted to record at a higher bitrate but stream at a lower bitrate and your machine has enough resources to do that, you could go set up a different encoding settings. All right, next, audio. Leave as is. Replay buffer. Replay buffer is an interesting one. If selected, it will continually record the last 20 seconds of your gameplay, and here you can see an estimated memory usage. And anytime you press the buffer button to record, it will save the last 20 seconds. You can set this higher. Mine is set at 60 seconds. This is just because I usually forget to press it. By the time I press it, I don't want the action to be too far in the past. Basically, this is what the replay buffer is. Remember that you will have to set up a shortcut to trigger that. If you leave the audio at default, you will have your desktop and your microphone in every single scene. So if you have a scene that you want the microphone muted, you'll have to mute it manually, and it's gonna mute it across the board. What I suggest we do here is disable all of those audio sources all the way down. Make sure your sample rate is 48, which is a new default as of OBS version 26. Channel stereo, and the metering can be left as is. This is the little bar that will appear in the mixer. Now in the advanced tab, the monitoring device. Depending on how fancy your audio setup is, the monitoring device is what you're going to be using to monitor what is happening on OBS. Things like transition, custom transitions, stingers that have sound, you'll hear them through the monitoring device. Or if you select monitoring on any single audio source, this is the audio device it's going to use. For me, this audio device is system. For you, it could be your speakers, it could be your screen, it could be any number of things. For me, it's a separate channel on my GoXR called system. Let's continue. The video tab. Earlier we talked about the canvas resolution. The canvas resolution is the size of this box here. So usually, if you stream in 1080p and you have a lot of 1080p assets and a 1080p camera, you want to be setting this at that resolution. This will avoid some stretching issues and some loss of quality. For me, I'm an Xbox streamer. My console outputs 1080p. My camera is 1080p. So my stream would be 1920 by 1080 with an output of 1920 by 1080. Downscale filter, leave that by default, and the FPS. Now, if your games that you're going to be streaming are 60 FPS most of the time, you will want to set that at 60 FPS, but it's going to take more resources to encode, and it's also going to take more bandwidth to stream. Now, if the bandwidth is limited at 4500, let's say, like we said earlier, your 1080 60 is going to be struggling. So you'll have to raise your bitrate according to your streaming service. In my case, a lot of the game I'm playing are still 30 frames per second because of my Xbox, so my FPS value will be 30. Okay, next we're going to do hotkeys. We've just enabled the replay buffer, so if you want to follow along, just go ahead and apply and click OK. Then reopen your setting, and once you go into hotkey, at the very bottom you should have a save replay buffer hotkey. So now the replay buffer save replay can be set to any hotkey you want. So let's say I want to use the 0 on my numpad. This is now the hotkey. Each time I press it, it's going to save that replay. There's a lot more hotkey you can use. I have a Stream Deck, so that's what I use for all my keys, except for the replay buffer. Now, if you want to go ahead and explore what options available, I suggest you set up all your scenes because all of your elements will be added one by one in this hotkey menu, and every single source can be muted, shown, and hidden at the press of a hotkey. All right, too easy. Last but not least, the advanced tab. Everything else should stay by default. Stream delay is if you're playing competitively and you want to add a delay. This is an option. Automatic reconnect, leave that enable. Network to default. Sources, this option creates problem for some people, but enabling hardware acceleration for browser source is going to put the browser source handling onto your GPU instead of your CPU. Browser source or something that is fairly process intensive, so if you're running out of GPU, maybe you want to come here and disable that so it frees up some of your GPU. Now let's press OK. This was a lot of blah blah, but here we are in front of OBS, ready to start adding stuff in. For this project here, we'll keep it a very, very, very simple. But once you understand this part, you will be able to follow my other tutorial, which is going to show you some more advanced technique on specific things. Presenting the tabs that you currently have access to. To the left, we have the scene tab. A scene is like the page in a book. You know, you always use the page that has all your games and whatever on. And let's say you want to switch to a scene that only has your camera, that's going to be a different page. You click on the other scene, it's going to switch between 1 and 2. Next to that is what is inside the scene. It's all our sources. This will be your camera, your gameplay, your overlays, your alerts, your text, videos, whatever you want to add. That's all going to be sources. In the sources will be some audio sources. Once we have audio in, we will see all the audio on the audio mixer. So you can monitor all the levels one by one, make sure that everything is in the green and doesn't go in the red, so you're not making your audience blind. Ear blind. Yes, that makes sense. Then, to the right, we got our scene transition. Scene transition is basically the animation between one scene and the other, one pages and the other. If you have a cut, it's just gonna go from one page whoop, immediately to the other. If you have a fade, it's gonna fade in and fade out. Motion is part of a plugin that we don't have here. A very popular one are the stinger transition. So let's say we add a stinger transition right now. We'll call it pixel. Now you can get a custom video file for your transition. Let's see if I can find mine. It's something that comes into your screen, hides everything, then reveals, and between the time that it hid and it revealed everything, you're seeing a switch. So it makes it, you know, nice and good looking. If you do set this up, you will need to know when the transition point is. 1 second in, let's preview that. And you see, it goes from B and A. It has enough time to do the transition in between. If your transition has sound and you want to hear it, you will select monitor and output. So monitor and output means you will hear it and your stream will also hear it. And audio fade styles, fade out to transition point, then fades in, or you can do a crossfade. All right, now you click OK. You add a second scene. Anytime you click on the other scene, it's going to go through your transition. Then there's the control pane. Control is, you know, pretty self-explanatory. Start and stop streaming, start and stop recording, start replay buffer. You want to make sure that you click that before you start playing a game so that your replay buffer is active. There's now the option to start the virtual camera if you need to use your stream as a webcam. We got the studio mode. We got setting and exit. Studio mode is a way to do change to your stream while you're streaming without the audience seeing the change. So if you click on studio mode and you click on that other scene, see nothing happens, you can do a bunch of change, and then once you're done, you can click on transition, exit studio mode, and no one's seeing you messing around with your overlays. Pretty handy trick if you realize that something is off on your screen. So let's go back to our original scene and let's add stuff. So first thing first, you probably want to add your game. There's a couple options to do that. You could do display capture. So if you do display capture, this will display your entire screen. So if you have two monitors, maybe you want to display the second monitor where you do your photoshopping, your arts, or some gaming on it. That could be an option. Certain games are going to require for you to do a game capture on PC. Or if you are on Xbox like me and you have a capture card, you will do a video capture device. So we call this Xbox. I've selected the Game Capture HD60S01, which is connected to my Xbox. A couple options you can change on your audio on your device. You can deactivate it. Configure video is gonna open the window AVC something control where you can set some of the custom properties. So not much to change here. So let's just cancel out of that. What you want to do then is go at the bottom here and set all your resolution and options. The HD60 is already set at 1080p 60 fps, so you could be using the default, but to save some performance you may want to change that to make it lower. Let's say you stream at 720p, there's no point for you to use the full 1080 of your capture card, wasting resources. So in this case, we would go into custom and we would pick the resolution. For us, we're at 1080, so 1920 by 1080. The FPS. My capture card can do all the way up to 60 FPS, but I don't need that, so I'll set it at 30. Video formats. Color space and color range can be set to default unless you have a specific reason to do that. Let's say you do Photoshop. You may want to do a full color space, full color range. Set the color space the same as your document so your audience see the exact same color space. Buffering is auto and audio output mode is capture audio only. Let's press OK on that. So as you can see, my gameplay has been added. I can resize it by just holding one of those controls. If I right click on it, I can do all sorts of transformation like rotate it. Or if I've done any mistakes and I want to reset, I can just click on the reset transform. Quick tip, if you need to crop anything, you can just hold the Alt key and drag and it's gonna crop. So you can easily set your thing. Next thing that any Go streamer may want to add is a camera. So let's go and do that step again of adding the video capture device. We'll call that camera. We'll see my beautiful leg again. Now let's set this to my C920 there. C920, the default resolution is kind of square, but if you double click on your camera and go into the properties and you set it to custom and bring the resolution back to 1920 by 1080, magically your aspect ratio is gonna go to 69. I set my camera there, I realize it's too bright. I can go back in my property, so I can either click there or double click on my sources. I will go into configure video and this window will appear where I can manually set all the information for this camera. So my white balance, my light are at 5000. So shy of 5000. The exposure is too high. That's a bit too low. 6 for the gain. Now you can actually make your camera look, you know, nicer. So I have my camera there. I have my thing there, but we don't have any audio. We have my camera audio, my Xbox audio, which my camera doesn't have my microphone turned on, so nothing's happening. Since we've deactivated all the default audio source, we want to be adding a microphone. So in order to do that, we'll press the plus button here again. We'll go into audio input capture. Audio input is everything that comes in your computer, and audio output is any sources that comes out of your computer. Little microphone there, let's call that microphone. And as usual, we'll pick from a list of device. My microphone is, I could pick my webcam microphone, but my microphone that I'm using right now is the chat microphone from my GoXLR. So here you go. I have my GoXLR microphone. Hello, 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 hello. Now let's say that I don't have a fancy GoXLR and I need to have my desktop audio or my game audio sent to the stream. What I will do, I will go into audio output capture. Desktop. And I would set it at my whatever device that is being used in Windows for the sound. That's what you would do. In my case, I have a GoXLR, so I have another input, which is going to be a microphone again. So GoXLR. And my audio device is going to be broadcast stream mix. This is what comes from my capture card, and this is the every other audio. So if I have music playing, if I have anything that my thing control, it's going to be there. Let's say you're using voice meter bananas or voice meter potato or any of those things, and you made a cable to have your music separated from everything else. That's going to be another tutorial I'll make in the future, but you would add your music separately. as in audio output capture, call music, and then you would select your music source. Any music you would play would show up there. The last thing you want to do before you hit stream is to go make sure that all your audio is set up properly. There's a menu that is somewhat hidden. If you right click on the audio mixer, you can go into the advanced audio properties. Once you're in there, you will click there to make sure that every single source that you have that can output audio will be shown. So I've done a full Go XLR tutorial where I talk super in depth about this specific page at the end, so you can go check it. But the gist of it is you have your source's name. You can permanently adjust the volume, so permanently boost or lower the volume there. Change the balance. You can do an offset, so if your lips is not synced with your video, you can come and play with your microphone here and add some offset. Then you have audio monitoring. So if you're on a single PC and you don't have a fancy audio setup, I highly suggest you don't put any audio monitoring, because your stream is listening to your desktop, and the audio monitoring will also go to your desktop, so your stream will hear the audio monitoring, so it's just going to loop and loop and loop and loop and loop and sound terrible. So if you have a single PC and you don't have any voice meter, or you don't have any Go XLR or any of those devices, rule of thumb is all those are going to get turned off. But if you have a separate audio for your headphones, let's say you're using a Blue Yeti that has a microphone input on, or you're using the new Wave 3 or Wave 5, or you have any other way to have two separate audio cards, one for your game and one for your monitoring, then you would go ahead and select the stuff you want to monitor. A good example here would be music. If you're sending the music to your music card but you're not listening to it, then you could go ahead and monitor and output the music, and you'd be able to hear that. And then are the tracks. So we have 6 tracks to choose from, but right now we know that we selected track 1 to be the Twitch or the stream track. So everything that you want your stream to hear is going to be in track 1. So make sure track 1 is selected on all your devices, all your sources, all your web browser that you want your stream to hear. Anything that you don't want your stream to hear, like my camera here, that is redundant, you uncheck it in 1. So if it's not checked there, even if it's not muted, stream won't hear it. You'll hear it, stream won't. Now, track 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can do it however way you want. My suggestion is track number 2 can be set for your microphone. So my microphone. Track 3 can be used for your gameplay. So for me, my gameplay is Xbox. Then you can put your music in track 4, and then your desktop. Let's say you're broadcasting your desktop, could be track 5. Track 6 would be empty, but if you have alerts, let's say sub alert, bits alert, sound playing in your stream, and it's coming from your computer, and you have a source for that, let's say a browser source, then you could put that browser source to 6. By doing so, whenever you're going to be recording, you'll have one track number 1 with all your stuff together, just like when you're streaming, and then every other track is going to be one single source. That means that, let's say my voice was too low in comparison to the game, I can lower the game, raise my voice. The music was too loud, or you want to remove the music, then you will be able to lower the music, considering you're probably using a software like Vegas or Premiere or DaVinci Resolve to do your editing. And now that's it. Once you press start streaming, this button will go live, the timer will go up, and you will see your resource usage there. Okay, now pro tip. You'll be streaming for the first time, or even in the future, and your viewers are going to call out that you have any sort of glitches. What you'll do is you will go into view and stats, and I will explain a couple things about this. The average time to render a frame is the time that it takes for your OBS to do the entire shebang, from receiving the frame and sending it out. Right now I'm not streaming on this instance of OBS, so it's very low. This will spike up and spike down depending on the usage of your computer, because if OBS runs out of resources, it's going to take longer to do this. Next, you will be looking at frame miss due to rendering lag. Frame miss due to rendering lag is caused by your CPU. Your CPU is struggling. It's not able to put the frame together on top of each other, and you know, it's creating some issues. You will see the number go up. If the number is going up all the time, that means that your computer is not handling the stream and you're losing frame. That means that the viewer is gonna actually get, like, you know, choppy video. If instead you see the frame skip due to encoding lag and you're using NVENC, that means that your encoder is too busy and is not managing to encode it properly. If you're using a current card, that will never happen to you, but let's say you're using an older GTX card, maybe your encoding is going to be struggling because your game is taking too much resources or your overlays are too heavy, so you will see encoding lag. Then you should see another one that says frame drop because of the network. That means your computer was not able to send the frame over the network. Those are 3 different metrics that are more precise than the bottom metric here that will, like, give you warning when you have issues. So this has been like a quick, long overview of OBS. Hopefully you got some useful information about OBS. If you have any question, anything you think I should change, put them down in the comment. I will answer them right away. Thank you very much for watching. Love your faces. And remember, streaming is fun. Thank you.